Thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. As always, make sure you're checking out the subscription button down there and the bell icon so that you're both subscribed and getting notifications about when my content drops. Like, comment, and share. Probably feels like I'm going to be beating a dead horse here, but we continue to work together. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, me, TC, because it's just me, and the United Patriots for Accountability parent group in Owatonna. We continue to work together on school board accountability, and we continue to work to present arguments about why the community should not want or allow critical theory to be taught in the Owatonna School District. It shouldn't be taught in any school district, but this group in particular here in Southeast Minnesota is really, they're working hard and they're growing. They're growing immensely. Monday night, we had a school board meeting there, and the room capacity for the room is 70 people. And a bunch of us showed up early, but we didn't get there early enough because the equity, I'll just call them the equity enforcement squad that was started in answer to the United Patriots for Accountability. They showed up before a bunch of the concerned parents did, and they marched in from down the street and around the corner, and they marched in and they took up a bunch of seats, which they're perfectly entitled to do. I don't begrudge them that, but the numbers are swelling, and the number of people that are showing up is really increasing. And I want to share, before I start sharing some video, I want to share with you the fact that building up to the meeting, as the numbers started to go up, it became very clear we weren't going to have room. Now, keep in mind, we've talked about this before, that for the last 6 weeks or more, at least 6 or 8 or more people from the concerned parent groups have been asking for a change of venue, or from the United Patriots for Accountability. I know this for a fact. I have the emails. I believe we did a video talking about the responses to those. But they've been asking for a change of venue because they knew that this was going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen. And so the facilities coordinator, I can't remember his name right now, the facilities coordinator stepped in and said, well, we're at capacity, folks, so we're going to have to ask, we're over capacity. We're going to have to ask some of you to leave. I was like, wow. And it got pretty heated because between Elstead and Sebring, they were not budging. I'm like, I started to tell people, come in, sit down, don't move. Like, we're literally at that point with civil disobedience. And at one point, Sebring got very upset with me and said, I have the authority to remove anybody who's disruptive, to have anybody who's disruptive removed. And I unfortunately, I don't have this particular part of the internet. I wasn't thinking we were going to need to record prior to the meeting. That will never happen again, by the way. We will be recording from this point forward. From the second we get onto the school grounds, everyone that I am working with is under very clear directions that they need to be recording with something, either their cell phone or with some sort of purchased camera of some sort. And they all need to be recording at all points and all times. But I stepped forward and said, excuse me, what did you just say? And he says, well, I'm not saying I'm going to have you removed. It was clearly directed at me. And the implication being I was disruptive. And I wasn't being disruptive. I was using, frankly, the part that you won't see, and we talked about this a little bit in the video about the Owatonna People's Press and a video about the Steele County Times. I was using some hyperbolic statements to say that during public forum, especially, staff, the cabinet members, not board members, cabinet members don't need to be in there. And if it's come down to this, where it's this packed, why are we allowing the press to take up 3 seats? Why do there need to be 3 people from the press there? And I want to point out too that I don't care if it's Steele County Times or the Owatonna People's Press. The Owatonna People's Press, though, however, had 2 people there taking up seats, and they wouldn't leave because, in the words of the Owatonna People's Press and the attorney that they talked to, they are more important because they can reach more people. Well, balderdash and hogwash. The Owatonna People's Press isn't going to reach that many more people than ultimately I do. Yeah, my videos may not show it, but there are people who are viewing these things and they're talking about what's going on. And the Owatonna People's Press doesn't. They reach a particular crowd, where the Steele County Times reaches everybody. So let's give Steele County Times as a paper of record is what we need to do. So yeah, I was pretty forceful, and I, people are like, well, those of you that don't have kids in the school district should leave. There are people all over that school district who don't have kids in the school district who are perfectly entitled to be there. And even prior to that, Sebring told a gal who has grandkids in the school district that she's not allowed to speak because she lives in Blooming Prairie and she's outside of the school district. And I told her, go back out there and fill out a card. They cannot limit you from speaking just because you don't have an address in the school district. And we talked about that too in the Owatonna People's Press video that I did. So yes, it got a little heated, and I kind of looked at the facilities manager, facilities administrator, and I says, you guys need to do something about this. I said, because this is ridiculous. People can't hear. They're standing out in the hallway. It's packed. Why haven't we been able to get a change of venue and yada, yada, yada. But then we got right to the beginning of, just prior to the beginning of the meeting, and I started to record. And that's what we're going to take a look at. And I need you to listen to this very carefully. You hear it in my theme music. Please listen carefully. You need to listen incredibly carefully to what Mr. Sebring says at the very beginning of this video. So let's have a look. We also have a right to recognize that there are people here. We also have a right. We have a right to recognize. As a board, and as a school district, there's no rights. And I have emphasized this to the Patriots United for Accountability, or United Patriots for Accountability, UPA. I've emphasized this to them. I've emphasized this to people in the Albert Lea School District and City Council situations, and everybody I talk to. School boards, city councils, county commissions, boards, whatnot, are not obligated by open meeting law to allow you a public forum. They are not obligated to do that. You have a liberty that is enshrined in the Constitution, granted to you by the God of nature, to a redress of grievances, but it does not mean they're obligated to provide you with a public forum. However, once they establish a public forum, they cannot limit who it does and does not speak. And even their demand that people give publicly give their addresses is pretty hinky. And I don't believe they can make that stand up in court. If I remember my research well, the Supreme Court, different court rulings and whatnot, have made it very clear that demanding a person give their information in public like that is not okay. But they don't have rights. And you're going to hear my response to this. We're going to go back and listen to him one more time. We also have a right. We also have a right to recognize that there are people here that have spoken at previous meetings. So as much as we would like to hear from them, we have a right to be able to say, we've heard you. We have an opportunity to hear from some others. You can do that as well. You don't have that right. You do not have a right to tell people they can't speak. You either shut down the forum for everyone or you shut down the forum for no one. Can we just calmly carry on and accept that there's something going on? No. I mean,
Is there a way that we can have a speaker out there so we can hear what's going on as well? Otherwise, we don't want to leave.
We don't have the capacity to obviously.
The churches and other facilities have, and motels have that, but you guys do not have that. Can you make that happen next time? Actually, to another place?
Now, that's a request in public for a change of venue. That is not the first time this issue has come up. It has come up in electronic email to the entire school board and to the superintendent, and it has been denied, and it's been going on for damn near 2 months.
It's fine. I'm going to go this conversation closed. Open our meeting. This is on the school board. This is Monday. It's August 30th. It's 5:30 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Eric, our attendance tonight? Just me. Very good. Thank you. Joel, please rise. Join me in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item tonight will be to approve the agenda as written. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Favor with an eye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. First up tonight is public forum.
Sebring is about to lay out rules for public forum. I want you to understand that I do not approve of swearing. I don't approve of cursing. I don't think that there is a place for actual personal insults or what in public debate would be referred to through the laws of logic and logical fallacies as the argumentum ad hominem, the argument against the man. I do not believe that those have a place in public forums. However, can a school board or city council or a county commissioner, anything else like that, restrict the language that is used? There again, they can restrict the content to issues that pertain to the school board, issues that pertain to the business at hand, and even things that might be related to the school district. But can they, in reality, restrict the content of your words? And the truth is no. The First Amendment protects unpopular speech. The First Amendment protects even the use of foul language or curse words. And it even protects addressing public servants, both appointed and elected, for their bad behavior. And it especially protects holding public servants accountable. And this is going to become very important because of the rules that Sebring lays out when two particular people speak.
Public forum. Take this opportunity to remind everyone of the importance of meeting decorum. We do not allow slander, defamation, profanity, personal attacks, or revelation.
There's something very particular happening here in that what Sebring is doing, and he's putting what's referred to as prior restraint or having a chilling effect, so that now he becomes the arbiter of what is profane, what is slanderous, what is defamatory, or personal. He gets to do that now as the board chair, because he knows that sooner or later people are going to start addressing things, because the redress of grievances isn't happening. People are not getting a redress of grievances. They're offering their grievances via email, and in 2 cases we've had some people have face-to-face meetings, but the grievances are not being redressed. They're not getting any resolution to their grievances. And he is going to use this to shut people down when he can. Let's go back, just listen to that for just a second.
Take this opportunity to remind everyone of the importance of meeting decorum. We do not allow slander, defamation, profanity, profanity, personal attacks, or revelations of private data.
Or revelations of private data. Now remember, they also require you to give your personal address, your name and your location. Is that not a revelation of private data?
Mr. Chair, I respectfully request that the public refrain from interrupting speakers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You provided 3 minutes. Ask to state your name, address, and the subject you wish to address. I'm going to take these cards in the order that they were presented to me. The first card is from Jane Parr. Ms. Parr, welcome.
And also note that the Sebring asks everybody their address and reads it out loud in many cases.
My name is Jane Parr.
Now, I want you to note that Sebring here says, I have it here.
And I'm here to speak on critical race theory. And this was a statement from my daughter. She was not able to be here because she's.
And this is a pro CRT statement. I'm not going to play all of it. I'm timing all the speakers, the pro CRT people and the people who are philosophically and worldview wise opposed to CRT. I'm timing it all because I don't trust Sebring.
The next card is Zach Radke. Mr. Radke, come on up.
No, he didn't ask for Zach's address yet. I can't remember if he does or not.
Ready?
So I haven't done one of these since high school, so this will be fun. My name's Zach Radke. Are we starting now or whatever? Do I need to tell you anything else? By a show of hands in here, how many people are fans of history class?
Zach does a great job, but I'm not going to play every one of these speeches,
Next card is,
presentations.
please forgive me, Koki? Konki? Did I get it right?
Close enough.
My mother would correct me.
Ms. Konki, welcome.
That's what you had to begin with them. But beyond there, I think we're going to do this.
424 Prospect is correct.
He didn't need to read that address out loud. I don't care who it is. There's just no need for that.
Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Reverend Koki Kaki, a resident of the county. I am a former middle school teacher. I am the child of educators and a parent of educators. I'm here today to express my support for the school board, for Superintendent Elstad, and the decisions you are making so that students are career and college ready. That includes giving them tools for and experiences in critical thinking.
Next, Jason Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, welcome. As you're sitting down, can I get Mr. Rebecca Moore? Ms. Moore, welcome. 1156G.
Yes, thank you.
Next card is Angie Langley. Ms. Langley, welcome.
So we haven't been playing all of the other audio or video of all the other speakers just because I'm not going to play all the pro and all the con CRT stuff. But I'm going to play all of Angie's comments because there's some pivotal things that happen. And then we're going to juxtapose Angie's comments with somebody else's comments and note what Sebring does to Angie and what he doesn't do to the other person. And also right here, right over here, keep an eye on the gal in the yellow and then the other gal that's sitting right to her left, our right, as you view. Keep an eye on some of their interactions. I think I can't say for sure, but I think you'll be able to see that they snicker and whatnot and whisper to each other. Those are the OPP reporters.
1910. Got it, thank you.
Members of the board and Superintendent Elstead, I'm here today as a concerned and disappointed citizen. First, I and everyone else in the community owe each of you an apology. We must own our own responsibility in the lack of accountability and transparency that has developed in the school district. We reached this point because we, the people, have forgotten that we are the government. Worse still, you have forgotten that you are our servants, each of you elected, appointed, and hired. Together, we are all here to blame. Mr. Elstead, I watched with dismay as you used the platform of your position as superintendent of our school district to appear in the Barbershop Talk Show YouTube channel from Rochester on October 1st of 2019. In that appearance, you were introduced as the superintendent of the Owatonna School District.
Ms. Langley, stop you.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
This is a personal attack.
No, it's not. It's a fact. Statement of fact.
It's a public fact.
Statement of fact. You cannot stop
Go
her.
ahead. Go ahead.
Give her time back. She needs 20
Go
seconds.
ahead.
Now, it was reported that we made demands for time and extra time. The reason why I said give her time back was because he took her time from her. And also notice that he is the judge of what constitutes a personal attack. This is not a personal attack on Angie's part. It is a statement of fact. I have the video out there. The unedited video without commentary from me is available on the Barbershop Conversation channel on YouTube. Elstead said these things. Angie, as a citizen, as we the people, has not only a right, but she has a responsibility to hold Elstead accountable for that. Sebring is out of line here. Out of line. He has clearly forgotten who he works for.
In that appearance, you were introduced as the superintendent of the Owatonna School District and then referred to yourself as community leader in Owatonna. In that interview, speaking as a representative of ISD 761, you referred to the staff of the Owatonna School District as not only being unconsciously biased, but consciously biased. The reality of that statement is that you accused ISD 761 staff of openly engaging in racism. But Mr. Elstead, that wasn't enough for you. Not in the least. In that same conversation, you state that you actively interrupt people in the community when you hear them saying inappropriate things in public, and that Owatonna is a racist community. I cannot emphasize enough, Mr. Elstead, that as a public servant speaking in your official capacity, you had no right and no permission to speak about your employers in such a way. If you choose to speak as a private citizen and say these things, that is your right, but not as an appointed servant, ISD 761. I and many others here defend your First Amendment liberty to speak of your beliefs in public and in any forum. But as your employers, as we the people, you have no permission from us to speak in this official capacity. Neither does any member of the school board have the authority to grant you such permission. One can reasonably deduce what your response would be if a staff member of the school district stood outside holding a sign that read, as an official representative of ISD 761, I know Elstead is a submersive Marxist shill. While they would have the right to hold that opinion, they do not have that right to speak as a representative of ISD 761. Mr. Elstead, you are that employee, but instead of holding a sign, you went on YouTube and called your employers and we the people a community of racists. You, sir, should be censored by the board, and you should publicly apologize to each and every member of this community for denigrating all of us in that way. Until then, we the people will be here at each and every school board meeting, speaking to this issue of insubordination and feckless and callous fight for us, your true government.
Thank you. Next card is Angie Stowe.
Angie
Coming up at 6:15, Sherry, correct?
Correct.
Angie does a phenomenal job with hers. And there again, it's not that I don't want to show all the pros and cons, but there are very key things I want to touch on here. So my apologies to Angie and
Next
others.
card is Jamie Van Roosbury.
Jamie is the other person now that I want to highlight. And I want it to be understood that I've actually invited Jamie onto the channel to discuss her views, to explain why she's pro critical theory. And it's an open-ended invite, just like I've also now invited the reporter from the Owatonna People's Press to come on. The Owatonna People's Press reporter has refused, basically indicated that I'm not worth her time, and it's not going to amount to anything positive. I have invited Jamie on, but I want you to pay attention to what takes place in her comments, and they're very brief, so we'll get there.
As you're coming up, it's 520 Cedardale Drive, correct?
Hello, I'm Jamie. I don't have a pre-written speech, but I just came to tell you guys that I really appreciate all the hard work that the entire school board is doing right now. I've seen the videos on social media that other school districts are having to deal with things that are not even on the agenda, or sometimes things that aren't on the agenda and that are, the videos are going viral because of the violence and behavior in the crowds. And I want to thank you for you guys being so outstanding and so stellar that you have control of your meeting, that you're listening to all the things, and your willingness to continue and stay the course. Mr. Elstead, I did see when you were on Barbershop Talks, and I have to say that that was a turning point in my household. I've talked before about my son, who is Black, and about some of his experiences at Owatonna High School. And I appreciate you going on there, and I appreciate you acknowledging the issues that were present in the school at that time. And I appreciate your dedication to changing those issues and to making sure that kids moving forward aren't going to have those same experiences, the negative ones that my son did. My son did say that his junior and senior year were very different than his school year up until that point. And so I appreciate you going and speaking very publicly instead of trying to hide the issues that are out there and bringing them to the light so that we can work on them together as a community. So thank you.
Now note what just happened here. Sebring cut Angie off and said it was a personal attack. This young lady was allowed and not stopped. And here's the issue. Angie was making a statement of fact. This young lady was making a statement of emotion. Angie did not attack the integrity of Elstead. She made a statement of fact. This young lady was lauding the integrity, lauding with her opinion, which I personally believe she has every right to do. But notice that Sebring didn't cut her off and say, ma'am, that's a personal comment. Now, maybe, and people would say, well, you got to err on the side of graciousness there, TC. Maybe Sebring realized he shouldn't have cut Angie off either. But the problem is that's not what happened. Let's just be honest. He wasn't going to cut her off because she was praising the high and holy potentate of the Owatonna School District, Jeff Elstead, his popishness. That's why she didn't get stopped. She didn't get stopped because she was praising the school board. That's why she didn't get cut off. Angie got cut off because she was there to be critical and to hold them accountable. The other gal didn't get cut off because she was there to fawn at their feet and praise them for all of their wonderful work. Now, neither one of them should have been cut off at all. But only one of them was. And why is that?
Notice here, stop her.
The next card has been presented in the form of three cards. And it's my understanding that the three of you are going to come up together. Is that right?
Now, these are three. Two of them are currently enrolled as high schoolers in the Owatonna School District. One of them is a graduate of the Owatonna School District. Now, this is another one of those areas where the Owatonna People's Press reporter completely mischaracterized what happened here. Remember, she stated that numerous times people demanded other speakers be given time. I want you to listen to what transpires here, and I want you to listen very carefully. I want you to listen closely, and I want you to listen to the tone that is used here. We're not going to get into the girls' comments. I applaud them for coming to speak. It's a nerve-wracking thing to do. But let's pay very close attention.
So it's Natalie Hurtado, Juliana Skalrud, and Jenna Dallin. Is it Dallin Bach? Do I have that? Do I have all of that correct?
Yes.
And you three realize that doing it in this approach, you're sharing your 3 minutes, is that?
Okay, I'll go on.
Mr. Sebring, I think it would be fair to let all 3 of them have 3 minutes. They had the guts to come here and speak publicly.
Is your preference to have each of you just wanted to be
Okay.
together?
I'm gonna talk separately and then everything. Yeah. You're a little nervous. Thank you.
So once again, I'm not cutting their stuff out because I don't agree with their position. I applaud them for having the guts. One of the girls breaks down in tears, and I just don't think we need to put that back out there. It's available through I believe the YouTube channel, and I'll put all of the videos together from the meeting, and I'll put them all up on my Rumble channel. But I want people to understand, look, this is the reality of who I am. Okay. I knew those girls were going to come in and speak in favor of critical theory and praise critical theory. And one of them uses language over and over again, these conversations. And I can't remember the exact terminology that she uses, but it's right out of a critical theory handbook. Courageous conversations. That's what it is. Over and over and over and over and over again. Constantly uses these courageous conversations. And that's literally a textbook for critical theory and equity, which is, a code word for critical theory. I applaud them coming on. But I want people to note did you A, hear my tone? B, I said, let's give them each separate 3 minutes. They deserve it. They're citizens. They are we the people. Was it a demand for more time? No, it wasn't a demand. It was merely me speaking on their behalf. People who I would eventually, guarantee you, I'm not going to agree with. So let's move on. I'm going to share the next speaker, Naomi, because she wasn't planning on speaking. And she did, and everything she says here is extemporaneous. And I just want you to watch Naomi.
Next card is Naomi Jurley.
I just sit here and I just stand.
As long as the microphone is able to pick you up.
Okay. I'm Naomi Jurley, 133 West North. I know so many people in this room. Like, I just really want to know everybody. And I know so many of you. I know so many of you. And so many of you are completely on polarized ends. And that really hurts my heart. So to me, I'm glad we're all in this room together, because it means that there is an answer. I personally don't believe critical race theory is the answer. I do know my story, and my story is that I've given my life to Jesus Christ. And everything I do for this community, is because of him, because he gives me gifts to give this community. And I ask all of you to look inside and find out the gifts that you've been given and how you can use those to give glory to God, help the children, and help families in this community grow to the greatest extent they can. Thank you.
Naomi represents the heart of the United Patriots for Accountability. A lot of things have been said about people who oppose critical theory, critical race theory, critical sexual theory, critical gender theory, critical feminist theory, critical women's theory, all of it, over and over and over again. They're all snowballed into one. It's critical theory. But a lot of people have said a lot of things about people like Naomi and others about how horrible and evil and spiteful and bigoted and racist and full of ethnic hatred and whatnot that they are. And I'm here to attest to you that that is so far from being true as to be disgusting that it's even being said. And Naomi's heart was just represented in that. Could any number of other people from either side got up and said what they said? Yeah, but it was Naomi's heart in that moment to say it. And I just want people to understand that she's the heart representation of the United Patriots for Accountability. I am not a representative of the United Patriots for Accountability. I am a lion in my approach. I'm not going to lie. I can be incredibly vocal and very confrontational when the need calls for it. So when I say things, I am not there as a representative of UPA. I am there as a we the people, as a citizen, as we the government, to help other people know that it's okay to hold people like Sebring and Elstead and school boards and county commissions and city councils and yada, 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 to hold them accountable for their behavior and for their actions. And they hate it. They absolutely hate it. So it is what it is. Owatonna Public Schools despises public accountability. And it's high time that they took the almost now 2 months worth of demands for a change of venue to heart and honored it, because that room is going to get packed, and it is going to get to a point where sooner or later there's going to be 60 or there's going to be 75, 80, 85 people in that room, and they're going to refuse to leave. And the school board is going to have to make a decision. At that point, do I have these people removed and trespassed or even arrested? And if that's a decision that they make, that's going to be on video. That will be on video, and it will go out. Do you hear me? Either change the venue or be prepared to have law enforcement come into that room and forcibly remove people. Forcibly, not with where people are resisting with violence, but you're going to have to forcibly remove people, and that will be on video. Someone will capture it on video, because I know for a fact that Sebring will have me removed first in hopes of shutting me down so that the video doesn't go out. But other people will be bringing video. They will be bringing GoPros. They'll be bringing their cell phones. They're going to be buying other cameras. There will be video. And at some point, you're either going to have to change the venue, Mr. Sebring and Mr. Elstead in the Owatonna Public School Board, or you're going to have to deal with a room full of 100 people or more. At least that's our hope. May not come to fruition, but you have to understand that we're going to get to the point where people are not going to comply. There's a man who talks about one of my favorite doctrines in Scripture is a doctor of lesser magistrates. It's not named that in Scripture, but it's present throughout the totality of Scripture. And he says, and I agree with him, that it is not civil disobedience, it's civil obedience in the United States to be obedient to the Constitution and demand accountability, and to demand that the lesser magistrates, in this case, the school board, do what is right. And they are not doing that. So at some point, they're going to have to address the change of venue, or they're going to have to deal with a room that's way overcrowded. And then they're going to have to make a decision, a very difficult decision for them. And if they call on law enforcement and law enforcement's answer is, well, I'm just following orders, I'm just doing my job, then you have the Nuremberg defense. And that'll tell you far more about the city of Owatonna and the school board. And we don't want that. We're begging you, change the venue. And remember that as a school board, you don't have rights. As individuals, as private citizens, you have rights, but as a school board, you don't have rights. You have responsibilities. Until next time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.